the much anticipated item 18, the subject of which is bullfrogs. And we have staff from the Water Department to fill us in.
Good afternoon, council members. Chris Berry from the Water Department. We're here today, real briefly, to ask you to amend the municipal code to prohibit the sale and possession of live bullfrogs. We perceive this as a fairly fundamental thing that the city can do to protect our native biodiversity. Hopefully you all had a chance to review the staff report. I won't bore you with the details. If you have questions, I'd be happy to entertain them and fill you in. We also have some biologists in the audience who can fill you in much more detail than I could. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
I was going to ask one quick question, which I think is, but what's the threat? I mean, could you just describe in a few sentences in terms of what species are threatened? Because
yeah, real succinctly, the bullfrogs are amazingly successful predators. They're highly prolific breeders. They carry the chytrid fungus, which they seem to be more immune to than our local amphibians are. So we have 3 special status amphibians in Santa Cruz County: the long-toed salamander, the red-legged frog, and the I'm pulling a Rick Perry here, the California tiger salamander. Excuse me. I'm so fixated on the red-legged frog because that's the only species the Water Department deals with. So we just see this as an obvious thing that the city should do. We do have a proliferation of bullfrogs at Loch Lomond. They do control bullfrogs does feature prominently in our emerging HCP for various amphibian species and reptiles, and the HCP that no one talks about, which includes the western pond turtle, Pacific lamprey, red-legged frog, etc. We've been fixated on the anadromous salmonid HCP for a long time here because it affects our water supply. But we are doing conservation planning for these other species, and control of bullfrogs is a key part of that.
Great. Thank you. Lynn?
Yeah. Chris, thanks for bringing this forward. In your experience, has this, the proliferation, is it more recent in terms of there's more sales happening through different kinds of pet supply places? Is that part of what's happening beyond what they're capable of doing themselves in nature in terms of reproducing?
I think there's 2 things going on. One is groups like Save the Frogs have helped raise the awareness of these issues. 2, just in our own little microcosm, we've noticed a huge population at Loch Lomond that wasn't there previously. So there's just sort of been this coincidence of factors that made us more aware of it. We've known for years that they've competed with the red-legged frogs, and it's only now that we're really getting into our regulatory compliance with red-legged frogs in city operations. So we've just become more aware of the problem. We've also wrestled with how the state's managing the invasive species issues, and as you all know, the state's wrestling with much bigger issues than bullfrogs. So yeah. They're just not able to manage this in a proactive way, the way that we would hope they would. So we want to do a couple things here. I think foremost is just try to set a good example and raise the awareness of the issue. Yes, we will stop the limited commerce in Santa Cruz. People can still buy frogs online. It's pretty shocking what you can buy online. If you type in baby snapping turtles, you can have them delivered at your doorstep tomorrow. You can have all kinds of exotic species delivered to your doorstep. And John and I shared some emails about how we can't really affect interstate commerce, but we can have a little bit of local control over what pet stores do here. And I was gratified when I called the pet stores to hear that the first series of calls, most of the pet stores were pretty ignorant of the issues, although surprisingly the one store that did sell tadpoles, or that knew they sold bullfrog tadpoles, understood the problem with them, and they just said, yeah, gee, we'd really like to do something different, but teachers come in and they want tadpoles to raise in their classrooms. So we're going to work with them to try to figure out a way where they can raise, say, Pacific chorus frogs, a native species, or find some other alternative. On my second round of calls prior to the meeting today, all the pet stores had said they're not selling tadpoles anymore because they learned through this experience that was a bad thing. And they also said it wasn't a huge economic impact to them, so it wasn't any skin off their back. It seemed like the obvious thing to do.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
David, and then Hillary.
Thank you for the report. I wanted to know, though, from what you just mentioned about people still be able to receive shipped-in frogs or purchase these online, is there any way to track that? What if something is being introduced to the local habitats that might pose a threat, even after something like this is an ordinance passes like this?
I'm not sure that there is. I'm struggling with that end of it myself. I've been talking with Ecology Action about building in biodiversity metrics, is what we're calling them, to the Green Business Program. So that's, and this applies to species way beyond bullfrogs. It applies to pampas grass, French broom, carp, or what have you, just exotic species that find their way out into the environment and cause problems for our native biodiversity. So I'm not sure how the city would deal with the commerce through the internet. It seems like the state really needs to step up its game in that regard, and not just with bullfrogs. I mean, this is a huge issue in California, especially in the Bay Area, with the international commerce that occurs here. So, unfortunately, it's, exotic species aren't a real glamorous side of the environmental conservation movement, but they're one that it's sort of the cumulative impacts will, at some point, we'll wish that we had done more about it. So I'm kind of gratified that the council is willing to be proactive at this point and set a good example for the rest of the state and the western states here with this item.
Hillary?
Yeah, I was just going to sort of add on to what the discussion was, that it would be really helpful, I think, to carry that one step further and talk about this with our Green Business Program and how we can possibly incentivize people to think about our biodiversity and because part of the exercise with calling the pet stores, I think, is about education, and that's really helpful.
Yeah, and I was pleasantly surprised at how receptive they were. I was a little bit prepared for, here you are, I'm the government, I'm here to help you, and you're going to crack down on my business and further cut into my revenue, and that was definitely not the reception I got. So that was fairly positive. But I agree, incentivizing is really the approach we ought to take here.
Great, thanks, Chris.
I think John
go
wants.
ahead.
Oh, okay. Catherine, go ahead, and then we'll go to John.
If you were going to talk about the international, I'd like to hear that.
Oh, no, no.
Oh, okay. Right. The report said the county is looking at that at this.
Correct. Yeah, I also sit on the Fish and Game Commission, and we started some work there on that.
Okay, and hopefully Scotts Valley, maybe. Have you talked to them?
That's Scotts Valley's a little bit of its own entity there. They don't have a body like this or staff that might address this kind of issue.
Right.
And strangely enough, they have some of the biggest biodiversity issues in the whole county, as you well know.
Well, that's where I was going to go, and maybe we could ask our city manager to talk to their city manager and see if we can't.
Yeah, and I mean, setting a good example here will maybe help them
Exactly.
along.
I know, because there's those two, the Glenwood, which has a wonderful pond, and the only way to reintroduce the red tail is to drain it and get rid of all those, and it's so expensive, and haven't figured out how to do it, as well as the sand hills. So
Right.
we have a land trust board meeting tomorrow, and I can't wait to tell them how we pass this.
Oh,
So,
good. Well, the
thanks a
Land
lot.
Trust has been a great partner on
I
amphibian
know that,
conservation
yeah.
issues.
No, we've been worried about this for a long time, so thanks for bringing it forward.
Yeah.
Mr. Barasoni, did you have something?
Chris was mentioning that one of the problems, or one of the areas that we want to focus on, was Loch Lomond.
Oh,
And the way the ordinance reads, it's within the city of Santa Cruz, which doesn't include Loch Lomond. So I would suggest that if you pass it, you should say, it shall be unlawful to buy, sell, transport, release, or otherwise possess live American bullfrogs within the city of Santa Cruz or on property owned or operated by the city of Santa Cruz. And that way we can capture Loch Lomond as well, and our watershed area.
Yeah, that would be great.
It would be.
Thank you. Thank you. Great idea.
So-
Catherine?
Just to that, because Antonelli's Pond is managed by someone else, does this cover it?
It's
Antonelli's
in the
Pond?
city limits,
Because
yes.
it's in the city limits, we have that jurisdiction. Okay, no matter who owns it.
Okay. You have a question?
Well, I was just going to clarify the language that John wanted. John, and you said it should say, and on property owned?
Or operated by
Or
the city of
operated.
Santa Cruz.
Okay.
While you're getting that, I'll invite members of the public who might wish to comment on this item to please come forward.
Thank you, Chris.
Hi, my name's Kerry Kriger. I have a PhD in environmental science. I'm a resident of the city of Santa Cruz, and I'm the founder and executive director of Save the Frogs, which is America's first and only public charity dedicated to protecting amphibians. Amphibians are rapidly disappearing in California and around the world. And one of the big problems is invasive species, in particular the American bullfrog, which California is importing in at least 3 million of them live every year into the state. Twice the California Fish and Game Commission has voted to stop issuing permits for the importation of all non-native frogs and turtles into the state, but the state has failed to take any action, so the permits continue to get issued. So there are two main problems with the bullfrogs. One is that they are carriers of the chytrid fungus, which has driven about 100 amphibian species around the world to complete extinction in recent decades. A recent article in the journal Biological Conservation, they tested about 800 bullfrogs coming into the state. 62% of them were infected with the chytrid fungus. The other problem is they're the largest frog in North America. They're native to the eastern U.S. and Canada, though. They have a very large mouth, and they eat, they're ambush predators. They eat whatever fits in their mouth. So our native amphibian species, birds, snakes, whatever fits in their mouth. So there's no reason at all that they should be in California or in Santa Cruz. So this ordinance is a very good step in the right direction to educating people and taking care of the problem, and also getting other counties and hopefully soon the state of California to take action on the issue. So if anyone has questions, I can answer them.
You know, a while back when we were, I'm trying to remember if it was here. I think it was here. It was somebody giving us a presentation about climate change, and it was a different species of frog. And the metaphor that they used was that it was like a really tiny frog. It said the metaphor they used is that this tiny frog is going to be serving as our canary in the coal mine to measure our world's impact on global impact on global warming. I just want to know, could you share with us if your knowledge of any about the the bullfrog's role in that? I hate to get all like Discovery Channel on you.
I'm not sure what frog in particular you're talking about. Amphibians are thought to be bioindicators. They're susceptible to environmental change, so they're an early warning system. And right now there are 16 threatened amphibian species in California. Worldwide, there's about 2,000 amphibian species on the verge of extinction, and 200 have gone completely extinct, which is an extinction rate several thousand times faster than it should be. So amphibians are telling us there's a problem. Some species, a very small number of amphibians, are not going extinct, and they're the opposite. They're spreading when they shouldn't be, such as American bullfrogs, which are now invasive species in 15 countries to which they do not belong.
Okay.
So
It's a good indication. Bioindicators, I'm going to remember that term.
that's
Thanks.
it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Any other speakers on this item? Come on up.
Good afternoon, Mayor Lane and members of the council. My name is Eric Mills. I'm coordinator of Action for Animals in Oakland, so I apologize for being a foreigner down here. But this is an
Welcome.
It's okay.
Thank you. I love this county. As Dr. Kriger noted, we've been working on the Fish and Game Commission for close to 18 years now to get this resolved, back when I had hair. And 2 years ago, the commission voted unanimously twice to stop the importation, and then the deputy director of the department said, well, the director acts at the pleasure of the governor. Well, there's a new governor in town, there's a new secretary of resources, there's a new director of Fish and Game, and as you know, the secretary of resources is your own John Laird, who's one of the best assembly people ever to come out of, I think, to Sacramento. So I'm delighted he's there. We've met with him. He seemed sympathetic to the cause. So I want to thank Dr. Kriger for his wonderful work, not only locally and in the county, but worldwide. He's really raised the issue in a lot of people's consciousness, which I think is super important. He mentioned there are 2 million bullfrogs imported for human consumption every year into California, probably about 300 to 400,000 turtles. Many of these animals are bought from the markets and released illegally, often by Buddhist sects. And there are a number of those folks here in Santa Cruz County. They do it for animal liberation ceremonies. They caught, I think, 11 Laotian Buddhists in San Francisco in the mid-90s over at Lake Merced, getting ready to release, I think, 53 turtles and 140 pounds of American bullfrogs. That's about 300 frogs, probably. I have photos of bullfrogs eating baby western pond turtles and the red-legged frog. And though they carry the chytrid fungus, 62%, as Dr. Kriger pointed out, they don't get sick and die themselves. They just spread it around. So these frogs are being dumped all over the place. Not good for the environment, not good for the frogs either, of course. We had, I think, 25 necropsies done on the frogs and turtles. E. coli, salmonella, pastorella, all three of which can kill you, blood parasites, giardia, one case of malaria. Anybody who would eat these animals, I think, is foolish. And as I say, it's illegal to sell these things for human consumption if they are diseased or parasitized, and they all are. So we're hopeful that you could set a wonderful precedent here today, because the county's going to be voting on this next month. Maybe we can shame the Sacramento politicians into doing the right thing. But I'm hopeful that Secretary Laird is going to do the right things. He's a super environmentalist, as is the new director. So we're hopeful there. So I think that'll do me. Thank you very much.
Great.
I brought a packet. I emailed you a letter yesterday, but I have a packet there I have made 7 copies of. I'll spread it
You
around
can
if I
give
like.
it to the clerk.
So thank you for
Thank
your
you
time
so much.
and work. Appreciate it.
Any other speakers on this item?
Ed Davidson, Mayor Lane, and council members. I am not opposed to this. I agree with the concept, but I want to raise another issue, and that has to do with the designation of California red-legged frogs as an endangered species. This comes from the problem in the San Joaquin Valley foothills, where much of their habitat was converted to agriculture years ago with contemporary with the introduction of the American bullfrog, which of course predates the tadpoles of the red-legged frogs and has led to their serious decline in that area. However, the range of the California red-legged frog runs from Southern California, at least this Los Angeles area, up the coast to the Oregon border, up the Oregon border coast to Washington State, up the Washington State coast, and all around Puget Sound.
Excuse me, Mr. Davidson. I'm going to remind you that the topic is bullfrogs, and if you're not talking about bullfrogs, this wouldn't be the time to be talking about it.
It's the same topic because we continually take on EIRs with showing red-legged frogs as an endangered species. They are not endangered in the coastal zones of the 3 states that I mentioned. And I support the concept of not the bullfrog issue, American bullfrog issue, I agree with, but it isn't particularly relevant to our county, but I would say you should support it. But be careful about always naming in all your EIRs the California red-legged frog as an endangered species. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers on this item? Oh, we got one more. Any other speakers after this gentleman? Okay. You can make your way forward just so.
Hello, my name is Michael Starkey, and I'm on the advisory committee for Save the Frogs as well. I also work as an ecologist, and I've been working for the last 6 years studying reptiles and amphibians throughout the state. And unfortunately, I've worked with mostly special status species, western pond turtles, San Francisco garter snakes, the California red-legged frog, and California tiger salamanders. And I've been very unfortunate to see the impacts of bullfrogs and how where we'd used to find ponds that would only have red-legged frogs and chorus frogs and now are completely inundated with bullfrogs. When they move in incredibly quick, and they tend to take over and eat everything that's possible. I've had the unfortunate task of doing a lot of necropsy work as well and finding good-sized California red-legged frogs in the stomachs, western pond turtles, and so I really just commend what you guys are doing here today and looking at this issue. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Lane, members of the council. I appreciate this minute or two to talk to you. Just for clarification, red-legged frogs are federally threatened. I am a retired fish and game warden. I do environmental consulting. This happens to be a big issue I've been working on. I'm also invasive myself. I'm up in the Bay Area. We're a much bigger topic, trust me, with cultural things and stuff going on. I just wanted, without being redundant, I want to make one point, and that in my 30 years with the department before I retired, I was spending a heck of a lot of time out in the ponds and the lakes and the rivers, and I can personally testify, seeing the change, watching the bullfrogs take over, watching the red-legged frogs being reduced, et cetera, et cetera. I might take some exception to the range that they claim they still are at, because I haven't found them. I watched them go. I heard you talk earlier about EIRs. You're very familiar with that. You're very familiar with CEQA. One of the jobs of the wardens, of course, is protect the habitat, and we write the 1601 agreement, 1603. Stream alteration permits, as you very well know. It used to be that was the big thing. We wanted to make sure that we were wiping out the red-legged frogs and stuff, and the salamanders, western pond turtles. Well, the recent ones being written, that is not part of it. It's in there. We got, in case they're there, we got to be careful. But you know what? A lot of them aren't there anymore. And up in my area, I can tell you San Francisco, I can tell you Oakland, the big ponds and lakes up there. Everybody goes, and all the tourists come, and they say, hey, this is great. Look at all these. Well, nothing's native. It's been wiped out. So all I want to say is I can tell you from personal experience and professional experience and what I saw in the reports we were writing over the years, this is a big problem. It's getting out there. And like they say with, I guess, like an acorn becomes an oak, you have a chance here just to start and do something really good for the environment, and hopefully it'll grow into something else. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So with that, I'll bring the matter back to council. And I was going to, before someone makes a motion, just suggest that perhaps in addition to the ordinance, we might authorize the mayor to send a few letters to the appropriate people, like the governor and Secretary Laird. So
I'd be happy to entertain that. So I'd like to make the motion to pass the ordinance for publication amending section 8.16.70 to the Santa Cruz Municipal Code pertaining to the sale and possession of live American bullfrogs, and also direct the mayor to issue correspondence to appropriate state and local agencies to encourage them to pass similar legislation.
Second, with,
all
I'm
kinds
sorry.
of seconds, but go ahead.
Well, I just want to
I
make
was
sure
gonna do the
you'll
same thing.
include that language that our city attorney included. We would
And
need
also
on G.
including that this ordinance would also cover any city-owned properties or facilities outside of the city limits.
and or operated. Perfect.
Any,
I just
Catherine,
want
go
to correct my comment. I think I said red tail frog. I think that's a wine. I really meant Red Lake.
Okay, we'll make sure that's noted in the record. Any further comments before we go to the vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say no. That motion carries unanimously.
And thank people for coming.
Yes, and thank you to the
Coming.
organization Save the Frogs and Action for Animals for their work, and along with Chris Berry's work to make this happen.
They came such a distance.
So this would be the time.